This is another edition of a podcast on the Cheap Seats Network with Andrew and Finn yet again. Right off the bat, though, I think we're going to say this. Tomorrow is going to be a lot of fun because we got the NFL draft. It is not just going to be us two. We are going to have a Skype call full of basically everyone live reacting to the draft. So that should be a ton of fun, in all honesty. We got sports again. And we got news. Thank God for the NFL because they are doing something right through this terrible garbage time. That news still comes out and is still happening. We get a trade yesterday that I don't think anybody saw coming.
No,
Gronkowski. I don't believe it, man.
Yeah, I don't believe it, but Gronk, he's his own person, right? He always kind of calls the shots about what he wants to do. I don't think he was ever really done with football. It's more he just wanted a bit of a break from the Patriots. Bill Belichick, everybody knows he's not the easiest coach in the world. He's even admitted it. Same with Brady, a nice 20-year relationship. Always time for a change. Gronk had 1 year left on his contract. He wanted to honor it, and no better way than playing in Florida to end your career and retire there.
Yeah, go to Tampa, where apparently that's where he's been, is in Florida anyway. And you're going back to Tom Brady. Like, he's not have to play with another quarterback. He's going to go into that system. I know it's Bruce Arians as the coach, but they're going to more so fit Brady's system than anything else.
Exactly, and Gronk knows that Brady's a reliable quarterback, can get him the ball, and Gronk will make amazing catches as long as Brady throws it to him, and another threat to add to that offense down in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, we knew the wide receiver threat, and even going into this season with the tight ends that they had, we were still thinking it's okay with O.J. Howard and Brate, and now you throw in Gronk, and you're just kind of like, okay, really, this offense is stacked and ready to go for, I would say, a long run at this point.
Yeah, definitely. Are they even Super Bowl contenders at this point? People are starting to bet on them to win the Super Bowl. At least they offer some good value now, and in their division as well with the Saints. It's going to be very close. They're moving up in the ranks in terms of favorites to win the division.
I still put the Saints ahead of them just because I think as a full team, they got a little bit more than Tampa. But I think when you're talking offense, you got to look at the Bucs now and say that on paper, it's one of the best. Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely put the Saints ahead of Tampa Bay for now. They've been together as a team. Especially with this off season, the players can't get together, the coaches can't get together with the players in person, start practicing in OTAs. So it is good that the Saints, they have the relationship already there, and their coaching staff is stable, and Breeze is the leader as quarterback for them.
And for this too, people have been laughing at the Patriots, oh my God, I can't believe they gave Gronk to the Bucs. They got a 4th round pick for a dude who was retired, who was not going to play for them.
Bill Belichick just traded a wrestler for a 4th round pick.
Yeah, exactly.
Never been done.
Traded current 24/7 champion Rob Gronkowski for 4th. That's awesome.
Yeah, and another draft pick for the Patriots to use to retool their team. Gronk, he was never coming back to New England anyway. So, might as well ship him out to a different conference. The only way that the teams would face each other this year is if they do meet in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Imagine that storyline. But it's definitely smart by Bill Belichick, and I would expect more moves to come from Bill Belichick, over the draft, try to acquire more draft picks in order to.
And I was going to ask that because now, we're going to kind of transition into the draft. Is Belichick could definitely use that as ammo because there's been talks about the Patriots potentially moving up or moving around in the draft. This pick could be kind of like that little sweetener in the arsenal that can pull off a trade. That's why I think it is a smart move for everybody involved. I don't really see a loser in this trade.
No, there's no loser in the trade at all. Patriots get another draft pick, and Gronk gets to go play with his buddy. So
yeah,
it works out, and it'll be exciting for football fans to watch. Both teams in the coming days of the draft.
Yeah. And the last thing too, with the whole thing regarding Gronkowski, what do you think is the odds that he plays after this season? That he keeps going?
I say close to 0, unless they win a Super Bowl and Tom Brady keeps playing. But like 1 year left on his contract at $10 million. He said he wanted to honor his contract and play it out.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going through his mind. If he feels healthy, he can keep playing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think if he has a good year this year and he's healthy for 85% of it, I see him definitely coming back for a much longer run. Probably like another additional year at probably the minimum it would have to be. But we'll move on now. We were talking about the draft, and this is a draft that the more I read into it, the more I get a headache because every team is either throwing a smokescreen or they are legitimately dumb. Like from the reports that we're reading, there's only one safe pick, I think, in this whole draft, and that's first overall, and that's Cincinnati. Joe Burrow is going number one. Like, to me, there is no question at this point that Joe Burrow is going to Cincinnati. Everything else, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Which is fun, but at the same time is a headache when you are reading mock drafts, trying to create your own, because there's talks of trades. For example, Ian Rappaport puts out a report today. I'll read it to clarify it. Sources: the Dolphins have called teams in front of them for a possible trade from number 5 and are gauging the price to come up to number 3. So I read that part of the tweet and I go, Tua, definitely.
Exactly.
To potentially take an offensive tackle. We could see a run of tackles in the top 10 like never before. You said right away when we were talking about this, smokescreen from Miami. Like you said, this is just to throw everyone off.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't know because we have seen Miami mess up some drafts. And I mean, we've seen every team mess up some drafts.
Yeah.
But the offensive tackle position in this draft, like he said, is good. Like they're talking potentially anywhere in the top 10 to top 15. We're seeing 3-4 of them go, which is crazy. That is a deep thing. But do you really give up the number 5, potentially the number 18, to go get an offensive tackle?
Yeah, right now, about 24 hours out from the draft, it is a lot of mind games using guys like Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter, feeding them information to throw off other teams and just kind of see what is out there, throwing some teasers out at teams trying to get trades. Miami, they do need offensive line help. They need a quarterback.
Yeah.
What I'm thinking is if they do draft an offensive lineman high, does that mean they get, say, a Jordan Love later on in the first round at their 18th and 19th pick? They're talking about Jordan Love as, the wild card of this draft as quarterback. He has, say, the potential to be great, but nobody really knows what's going to come from him. And that's why he's projected, say, later in the first round versus Tua, Herbert, and Burrow. But as you were saying, the safest pick you think is Burrow. I don't even think that's the safest pick. I think the safest pick is Chase Young, the edge rusher from Ohio State. Burrow did have an excellent year, came out from, say, a 4th, 5th round projection to be number 1 overall pick. He threw 60 touchdowns last season, but Chase Young is just an absolute freak of an athlete. And I think
what I mean by safe pick is we know that Cincinnati's taking it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, to me, Chase Young is the best player in this draft. But we know Cincinnati's not going to use the first on an edge rusher. They're going to take the quarterback,
Yeah, I agree. Cincinnati just hasn't said officially they're taking Joe Burrow yet because they want, to build the suspense for the draft, and they want him to get the call on draft night that they're taking him. But they are going to take Joe Burrow. And what happens with Andy Dalton then? Are they going to have a quarterback competition? Are they going to trade him?
Yeah.
Is he going to be upset at, kind of feeling that the Bengals let him down?
Yep. And that moves to the number 2, which you and I both said the best prospect in this whole draft is Chase Young. Now, if I was Miami talking about this whole move up, this is the only guy I think out of the top 5 I would move up to go and get is Chase Young, because this guy's a freak. He's an animal.
Yeah,
he is
exactly.
The best edge rusher in a long time.
Yeah, he set an Ohio State record in sacks last season. His ability to get to the quarterback and get in the backfield and be an absolute disruptor to offenses makes him such a dynamic player in his athletic abilities. And he's kind of like an offensive player if you think about it, because if he forces a fumble or gets a big sack, it puts the offense in a better position to score points, right? So Washington definitely needs to take Chase Young and add him to that team, and then they're rebuilding, and expect a lot of things to come from this guy in the league.
Yeah, and like we talked about in our last podcast, like with Washington, you never know. But like I don't feel like they could screw this one up. There's no way.
No, it's handed to you on a silver platter. If Burrow didn't have the season that he did, and I think number one would be being more talked about. Two would be in the mix for number one, and Chase Young would probably be the odds-on favorite to be the number one.
Yeah, 100%. No, I fully agree with that. That moves to pick number 3, the Lions, which this is where the talks are that the Lions potentially move down. This is where Miami could move up. If Miami does move to this number 3 spot and they go with an offensive tackle, who are we thinking? Andrew Thomas? Potentially?
I've heard a lot of talks that Wirfs is the number one offensive lineman in this draft. At that point, it's honestly evaluating offensive lineman is a lot different than evaluating a quarterback.
Yeah, because like a lot of mock drafts, they got even Wills Jr. up there. They got Wirfs. They got Thomas. That's what I mean. Like, just to me, stay away from this pick unless you are taking a quarterback, which then that quarterback could still fall to you at number 5, and that's Tua. That's why I don't understand any of this.
Yeah, and they're saying about this draft as well that Detroit would like to trade back and acquire more picks because their needs, say, as a cornerback, they can acquire later on in the first round. So that's an option for them. However, it is harder to find a trading partner this year versus other years because of how the draft is set up, and people may not want to make as many moves as they did before.
And if Detroit does keep this pick, I think the consensus is they're probably going corner, and it's the guy from Ohio State, Jeff Okudah. Yeah, he like if Detroit keeps his pick, I think the smart pick right there is Jeff Okudah, no question. Then you go to number 4, the Giants. There's also been talks again about a trade there. They don't go quarterback, right? Like there's no way.
No, they don't go quarterback. They drafted Daniel Jones last year in the first round. He did decent as a rookie, showed some promise. You got to see him in his second season. They just need to protect Daniel Jones. They would have to go offensive lineman. Hearing Wirfs to the Giants. Their offense, it is, looking good with Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones, Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard. So they do have some tools there. Ingram as well, the tight end. So this keep building around Daniel Jones.
The only other debate that I've seen if they don't go with Wirfs is if they decide to go defense, because we know their defense isn't crazy. And the name Isaiah Simmons has come up, the linebacker from Clemson. Was the only other guy I've seen really in debate for this spot if, again, they're not going with the line. And that's being Wirfs, of course. I think if you're going offensive line, you're going Wirfs. It has to be him first.
Yeah, Isaiah Simmons, he's kind of like a positionless player. He's just an athlete. He doesn't need to, say, only play linebacker. He can play all over the field, coverage, get to the quarterback, kind of be a versatile guy. He had a great season at Clemson. He's being talked about as a top 10 pick for sure. And the Giants, they do need help on defense in terms of stopping the other team.
Yeah. Then we go pick number 5. It's Miami. I think in a perfect world, it's Tua right here. They don't have to trade up. He's going to be there.
Yeah.
The only reason, again, I will say that they would need to trade up is if for some reason Washington calls them right before their pick. Again, the big if. And if Washington goes, we're going to take Tua. That's the only reason I think Miami needs to freak out and move. Because, again, Detroit doesn't need to worry quarterback. Like, they still got Stafford under big contract. Daniel Jones is in New York. They just drafted him. And we know Burrow is going number 1. That's the only that's why I don't understand the talks of trading up for a quarterback. If they trade up to get an offensive tackle, what are you doing? You got 2 other late picks that you could either use on a tackle or trade those ones to come up maybe to number 10, number 12, anywhere around there. to go after these guys. So number 5 in a perfect world is Tua to Miami.
Yeah, I agree. In terms of the evaluation of, say, Tua versus Herbert, if you took medical out of it, it's up to like the GM if they think, if both healthy, would they rather have Herbert or would they rather have Tua? A lot of people are saying that Herbert in his offense at Oregon, it didn't help him as who he is as a quarterback. If you put him in an NFL offense, he'll actually be better. His athletic tools, they are there. He just wasn't able to, say, utilize them at
Right.
Oregon in terms of what their system is. So at the next level, he'll be able to make a bigger impact.
Yep.
But I think Tua's a once, in a generation quarterback. He doesn't come around that much. There's going to be a Herbert in next year's draft. You're always going to be able to find guys like that. But Tua, the opportunity, you have to go get him. Only if you think Washington with Ron Rivera and the new regime is gonna draft him and go for another first round quarterback, or if the LA Chargers trade up if they like Tua that much.
Yeah, and from what we know, they do like Tua because, again, other mock drafts are talking about them. If they don't get Tua, there is a chance they go after Herbert. That's more, I would say, not realistic. I feel like they're going to go somewhere else. I don't think they'll go Herbert at 6. If they trade down or they acquire another pick in the first, then maybe. Because then you got to look at a team like Jacksonville. There's been talks about Jacksonville potentially looking at Herbert and even moving up in the draft as well to try and go grab him. So I don't know, like those first 5, I think again, the real kind of perfect spectrum, Joe Burrow, Chase Young, the offensive lineman going to Detroit. Wait, right? That's what we had? No, sorry, Jeff Okudah to Detroit. Yeah. Wirfs to the Giants and Tua at number 5.
Yeah, that's a good top 5. That's what I would predict as well.
Yeah. Now, I want to talk quickly, like we're not going to go through every pick, wide receiver in the draft, because we know that there's some good wide receivers. Where do you think, if you had to guess quickly, the first wide receiver goes? And maybe who is it?
Yeah, I think the wide receivers start coming off the board, say, at number 11, 12, 13. You got the Jets, Raiders, 49ers. Yeah. Those teams are in big need for, say, a deep threat receiver or wide receiver. The thing is, say, with the Jets at 11, they could be going for an offensive lineman as well. They have 2 needs, offensive lineman and receiver.
Yeah.
If they want to protect Sam Darnold. So there's been a lot of talk, say, of CeeDee Lamb being the first receiver. You see some drafts with Jerry Jeudy, some drafts with Ruggs being the first receiver. They've all been interchangeable. It is kind of off the preference of what the GM is saying. Jerry Jeudy's exceptional at route running. Ruggs is the speed guy with his fast 40 time at the combine. I think that boosted his draft stock a lot.
Yeah.
And you see the NFL now with guys like Tyreek Hill. If you want an electric player like that, and CeeDee Lamb is, great for yards after a catch and being an aggressive receiver that way. So they all have their unique skill sets. You can't go wrong with any of those guys. But definitely in, say, the 11, 12, 13 to the draft, go receiver.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it because it goes perfectly is depending on what the Jets do. If they go offensive line. The other team I think you got to watch too is Denver because I think it's between Denver, New York, and Oakland. The Las Vegas Raiders, I guess. You look at potentially 3 wide receivers in a row. There's that possibility because that's really what those 3 teams need.
Exactly. Once the first wide receiver goes, it's going to be, a trickle effect after that. Denver definitely needs a receiver. Cortland Sutton was their number 1 last year in targets. They had their tight end Noah Fant, but other than that, don't really have anybody else. Drew Lock came in as a rookie last year. He's coming into his 2nd season. Imagine getting a guy like a Ruggs in there to help with the offense, how more explosive it would be in their ability to get in the end zone.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And the last one, I think, for actual players and talk, New England Patriots pick at 23. Do they go quarterback if they stay in that spot?
Yeah, I don't think they go quarterback here. It would be tempting if Jordan Love is still available from Utah State to have him kind of be a project for the Patriots.
Right.
But no, I don't think they go quarterback here. They do have a lot of needs at almost every position, wide receiver, tight end. Their defense is in need. You know, Bill Belichick is a defensive guy. I think he'll take a defensive player in the first round. I wouldn't be surprised if they do draft a quarterback. They definitely will. One guy to look out for would be Jalen Hurts from Oklahoma. You know, day 2, 3rd round if he's available. If he slides, you know, to there at a good spot, I can see the Patriots taking him. Proven winner in college. So that's one way I could see the Patriots going, but not in the first round unless, you know, something happens and the Patriots get to it. That would be
that they move up or somebody somehow falls and they kind of jump up and grab them. Like, that's really the only way. I agree. And like you said, I think the only one that you're looking at that if he's there is Jordan Love, realistically.
Yeah.
The other thing too I was thinking about with the draft was the wide receiver depth is obviously very, very deep. Like, that has been the talk of all this. So if your team, like, I know there are people who they're looking at the big 3. We're talking Lamb, Judy, and Ruggs.
Yeah.
If your team doesn't get those 3, it's fine, because like they are talking about wide receivers even going into the 2nd round still being potential great players.
Yeah, all the experts that you've seen with their projections and mock drafts has shown like 12 wide receivers through the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
You have guys like Justin Jefferson from LSU. Saw him on the big stage with Joe Burrow this year. He's projected to be a later first round pick.
There's a guy from Notre Dame as well. Yeah.
Yeah, this wide receiver class is, you know, projected to be one of the best of all time, and there's no better time to need a receiver than now, especially get a young guy fresh out of college into your system and see what they can do and hopefully turn into a franchise player.
Yeah, no, 100%. Now we're kind of fading away from the draft. You have some prop bets. We have not bet on stuff in a long time because there's been nothing to put money on.
Exactly. You know, I'm not touching any, you know, table tennis events or video game simulations. But, you know, the NFL draft, there's a good time to throw some wagers in on some prop bets. You know, if you have strong feelings about where players are going to go, why not throw in a wager to see if you're right and can profit off that?
D-Gens are going to stay the way that they do, man. That's all I'm saying. So what do you got?
Yeah, so the first prop bet I have is Alabama players drafted in the first round, over 5.5. We talked about it before.
Over.
Definitely say, like, they are a football factory, and the names that we've talked about, we've already named 4 or 5 Alabama players.
Yeah.
Teams love drafting players who are ready to play in the league right away, come from a good coach in Nick Saban who's trusted, who's coached in the NFL. Yep. So Alabama players seem to fly off the board. And it's a good bet to say that at least 6 Alabama players will be drafted, and, you know, pays a good price. So definitely wagering on that.
That is going to be a tough one because I think the minimum is going to be 5, like the minimum. But
exactly. So either you pick the under and hope for 5, or you pick the over and just
what did you pick?
Those guys.
What did you pick?
I picked the over 5.5.
Okay. It's going to be fun to watch. All right, what else?
Henry Ruggs pick under 13.5. I think his stock has really been rising lately since the combine. Teams are moving him up on their draft boards. And as we talked about, the 11, 12, 13 range for receivers to start getting drafted, I think either the Jets, Raiders, or 49ers are going to draft Ruggs.
Yeah.
So, and the Raiders, I think they're a big speed team. John Gruden and Mike Mayock, the GM, I think they can set their eyes on Ruggs and pick him at 12.
Yeah.
So it's good to bet under 13.5 picks for Ruggs, and who knows, maybe even like the Jaguars at number 9 can pick a guy like that. So
yeah, and there's been a lot of talks too about teams moving even up to get these one of the 3 guys like we mentioned. So Ruggs, 13 at the latest is not a bad call because Philly could move up. There's been talks about them potentially moving up. San Fran staying there, going after him as well. Denver moving up as well. There's been a lot of talks about these teams moving up to make that wide receiver play. So yeah, I think that's a safe one, definitely.
And everybody likes speed, right? It's you see
Yep.
Usain Bolt in the Olympics breaking records. Everybody wants that flashy guy.
Yes, sir.
So I think it's good value to bet on Henry Ruggs to get drafted in the top 13 picks.
Yeah, and like we said, with the teams that are there too, they're all wide receiver needs. Like from 10
it's set
to
up perfectly
13.
for wide receivers.
Exactly. What else we got?
Yeah, so I have Jeff Okudah draft pick under 4.5. I think that it's going to be difficult to make trades in this draft, even as much as Detroit, they want to move back.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be very difficult to find a trading partner and shuffle things around. So at the end of the day, they're going to stick at number 3, and they're going to draft Jeff Okudah because that fits their immediate need.
Yeah.
We
both
like
Go ahead.
Derek Brown, the defensive tackle from Auburn. They like him as well, but I think Okudah will be the guy at number 3, so hit the under 4.5 in his pick.
Yeah, and we both said in a perfect world, if you're going by team needs and best player, Detroit should be going with Jeff Okudah. Like, we talked about the other defensive player there, Simmons, I believe his name. We mentioned him, but realistically, he shouldn't be going as high as 3. Because like you said, he is a great athlete that kind of plays any position. But with Okudah, you know what you're getting. You're getting the best corner in the draft.
Exactly, shut down
which
corner.
Is what Detroit needs, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like that one. I would pick the under, definitely.
And my next prop bet is first offensive lineman drafted. I have Tristan Wirfs to be drafted as the first offensive lineman. It pays 2.75 to hit, and like you said, there's a lot of good offensive linemen in this draft, especially tackles. But I think that the Giants at number 4 have been looking a lot into Wirfs, and they can go get him. And then it would be the first offensive lineman drafted. I think, between 4 and 10 there's going to be a couple names that are picked, but Wirfs will be the first offensive lineman off the board.
What's crazy to me is like looking at some of the mock drafts from experts. They rank Tristan Wirfs the best offensive lineman. But some of them, like, it's weird. They're full out. They will say in their explanation, like, this guy's the best offensive lineman in the draft, and they have them being the second or third one going. I don't get it.
I guess they're just trying to get in the GM's head and pretend to be the GM of that specific team and think like they would.
Right.
And, this GM would think like this, so this guy is going to go to this team type thing.
Yeah.
But I think Wirfs will be.
Yeah, Wirfs to me, like, from
value to bet on him, being drafted as the 100%. First offensive lineman.
Yeah. No, agreed.
I have a couple more coming up. I have Jedrick Willis Jr. draft pick over 8.5. Just from mock drafts I've been reading, I've seen him going, say, like 10, 11, 12, range 9. So it's just good to get him, not picked in the top 10 or maybe number 9. So that one hits it.
What was it?
Jedrick Willis Jr. draft
pick. Yeah, which pick did they have him?
Over 8.5.
Oh, I think I would honestly. Ooh.
So I think he's gonna go, 9, 10, or like 15 range. So
under then, yeah.
Over.
I thought you said 9.
Over 8.5.
Oh yeah. Over ahead of that. Yeah. No, agreed completely. Yeah, he's not going top 10. There's no question.
Yeah, exactly. And T. Higgins to be drafted in the first round. I have him as yes. Wide receiver out of Clemson. We talked about, how good this wide receiver class is. If a lot of guys keep coming off the board quickly and keep drafting wide receivers, I can see him going in the late 20s.
Oh, that's a good bet too. Because again, it's so wide receiver heavy. It depends what the team likes.
Yeah, it's who they like the best out of all the guys. We've seen him with Trevor Lawrence at Clemson, putting up big plays and big numbers and being the number 1 guy there. So I can see him being a late first round pick.
I was going to say, I think if he goes, it's going to be at like between, God, I don't even know, like looking at the teams there, maybe 26 to 32.
Yeah, that's exactly, the spot I'm hoping that he goes in.
Yeah.
Somebody grabs him late. There are some injury concerns with his knee, But I think, teams looking at the tape and seeing some of the catches that he made deserves to be a late first-round pick.
I think the teams, too, that you're looking that late is, depending on who's gone, 22, you got Minnesota. Obviously, we know they traded Diggs away. But again, if there's other guys still available, depending on what they like, they could be going for them. They also have pick 25. They could be looking over there. Miami at 26. Green Bay at 30.
Yeah.
Those are kind of in San Fran. Yeah, those are the teams I think you're kind of looking at.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just who do they like the best, and T. Higgins is showing that he's an elite receiver.
Yeah, and all depends, what they do, because some of those teams, they have multiple picks, or they might have multiple picks from trading up. So yeah, that's a good question. Kind of one to definitely watch and look for.
And finally, my long shot of the draft: tight ends to be drafted in the first round over 0.5. I'm going to take a shot at this. Say one tight end gets drafted. Haven't really heard much about the tight end class. A lot of people have been talking about the wide receivers, but I feel like some GM is going to fall in love with a tight end and pick them. And it's a super long.
So you think one will just show up?
Yeah, the one tight end will fall in somewhere at some point.
I'm gonna go on this one and say no. I don't think a tight end's going first round. I think this draft, from the talk of what they're talking between quarterback, receiver, lineman, it's just too deep a draft at such important positions that I feel like you could grab a tight end anywhere else. That I feel like there's way too many holes that can be filled in the first round for these teams. Even looking at it, there's a lot of corners in this draft. There's a lot of even edge rushers in this draft, linebackers. I don't know. I feel like it's too an important position draft to kind of risk it and go for a tight end. I would rather stack up on a certain position than go for a tight end if I needed one. Pick the best player available.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. A lot of the best tight ends in the league, they weren't even drafted in the first round. GRONK was drafted number 75 overall, right? So just shows that you don't need to draft guys in the first round for them to be stars. But like I said, I think maybe one GM just fell in love with the tight end at the combine or watching film. They make the decision 100%. That, I'm going to go with him, and it pays 5-1. It's a super long shot. But
why not give it a go? Yeah.
Why not give it a go, and hopefully somebody pulls the trigger on a tight end?
Yeah. 100% agreed. Any other last little bets or anything with the draft that we want to go through?
Yeah, I think, a question would be what GM is going to look the worst on Friday after the first round? Who's going to make the bonehead move, or is there going to be some sort of, big trade or, pick that's a huge stretch that people haven't even thought about?
I think the guy right now that's in the biggest hot seat is Chris Greer in Miami. If they move into the top 3 and take an offensive tackle, and again, to get to that number 3 pick, we're talking they're giving the 5th, obviously. They're not going to keep 3 and 5. They're more than likely giving the 5th overall, and they're going to have to give one of their other picks, which is probably going to be 18 or the other one that they have, the later one, 26 from Houston. They're giving at least 2 of those, the 5 and one of them. If they move to 3 and take an offensive tackle, those fans are going to lose their minds because they are so set on Tua. The fans are convinced they're getting Tua. Imagine the heartbreak. You're getting a generational quarterback. You think you are, and you get an offensive tackle. To me, it's Chris Greer. That is the guy who he is either going to make the right move or he is going to make the dumbest move in this draft.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sometimes when you have, a lot of picks, you can try to get too cute with it. You overanalyze your team and, what you really need. If you just break it down and say, we need a quarterback, who's the best quarterback, take Tua if he's there at 5, and then just keep it simple and build your team through the draft. Don't try to get cute with trades and simplify that. Yeah, the offensive lineman definitely not selling many jerseys in Miami. You can see the Tua jersey coming off the shelf if they pick him. Yeah,
he doesn't even have to play this year. That's a thing. You still got Fitzpatrick under contract. You even have Josh Rosen, for crying out loud. Let Tua recover. Let him learn the system. It's essentially what Patrick Mahomes did in KC. He watched for a year, and look what happened.
Exactly. Sit behind Alex Smith for a year and, become MVP and win a Super Bowl within 3 seasons, right? Not saying that's going to happen for Miami, but, especially this year as well, if there's no fans in the stadium, nobody really knows. It may be shortened. They haven't figured out all the details yet. There's no better time than to sit him down for a year, let him rehab, get healthy, learn the offense, and come out guns a-blazing when it's his time. There's no need to rush a guy like that to perform. There'd be no pressure from the fans. They've seen Fitzpatrick win games.
Yeah.
And he's been beating the Patriots, right? So
and here's the thing. If they don't get Tua and they don't trade up to number 3, so they keep the 5, let's say Tua goes somewhere else, and then they decide to go O-line. If the Dolphins suck next year, Trevor Lawrence is in that draft. We talked about this on the last podcast.
Exactly.
Do not trade up for a quarterback. Like, you don't need to. Like, realistically, you can suck again next year and go get another great quarterback. Like, I don't know. I think he's definitely there, yeah. And the other one I would say is Bruce Allen, the GM from Washington. And, of course, you mentioned it in the last one, Dan Snyder as well, the owner.
Yeah,
they are a little bit
Snyder
nuts.
calls all the shots there. If he likes a guy, he's going to draft him. Even if the GM recommends against it, he pays the bills, right? So he gets to pick, who he wants no matter what. At the end of the day, he gets the last call.
Yep.
But, yeah, I think trades will be difficult in this draft. If a team, wants to trade into the top 10, they're going to have to give up a lot. Even moving up, say, 2 spots, you're going to have to mortgage a couple of first-round picks over the next couple of years, right? So you're going to have to give a first-round pick this year, first-round pick next year, a couple of seconds as well. So you have to be really certain you want to make that trade and really believe in the guy that you're going to go get, that he's going to be an important piece for your franchise, because if not, you're giving up so much just to move up for 2 spots.
Yeah, like the top 5, I think, is going to be bananas if there is a. Hence why I keep saying with Miami, you're talking minimum 2, maybe all 3 other first rounders for 1, which, again, stupid. But I think, like, you start opening up past the top 10. Like, we mentioned teams like Denver and stuff like that potentially making moves. Then I think you're kind of looking at a more realistic possibility.
Yeah, a team like Seattle, they've been known to trade their first-round pick over the recent years. I think almost every year their GM has been moving their first-round pick. So at that point, they are drafting later in the draft. They're just trying to acquire more picks, maybe 2 picks in the second round instead of 1 pick in the first round for guys that they like on their board. It works out better for them, and so they don't maybe necessarily want that first-round pick and can get more for it than a player that they value.
Right. Yeah, I think that kind of sums it up there. Anything else you want to add in?
No, I just, looking forward to getting some coverage on the draft, the NFL draft. It's always an exciting time every year. You get new players in the league, the impacts that they're going to have on their team, fantasy football as well. How are these rookies going to be drafted in fantasy football leagues? So it's always a big event. It would be better if it was in Vegas and they had all the scenery going on in the fan.
Of course.
Well, Roger Goodell wants people to send in videos of them booing him so they can raise money for charity. That's a good cause, because that's awesome. The one benefit of this year's draft. Nobody's going to boo Goodell, but it's kind of
he's asking for it, so yeah.
It's kind of weird that out of all the jobs in America, that the best player at their position doesn't get to choose what team they play for, where like the best lawyer gets to choose what firm they work for. But just to keep the system fair, the draft is in place, and finally we get to watch some live events, and kind of hoping for a technical difficulty during the draft, or a cat on the screen or something, right? It just shows that everybody's human and we're all in this together.
The other thing before we sign off too is, like, the thing I'm loving is they've been sharing pictures of the GM's draft rooms, and you have, I think it was Tampa Bay. He had like 3 or 4 monitors and screens set up, and he was like, one is to literally watch the draft, and the other 3 are all like research stuff, like to stay connected with the team. And then they cut to the Giants, and the dude just has a laptop.
Yeah, like Giants just have one computer, keeping it really simple.
He had one laptop on like a pile of books to be eye level with him, and I was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, these other guys had their whole, war room set up, telling their kids not to go on the internet so that they don't, go with the bandwidth. The Detroit GM has his IT guy staying in an RV out front of his house during the draft just in case something happens and there's technical difficulties. You can come in and fix them right away.
I can't wait for like fantasy football where like a timer runs out, some guy doesn't make a pick, and they're like, "Well, this is your guy now," and they just pick the top
auto draft and if the GMs don't go on mute or something happens or you hear some swearing, I don't know, you're gonna see some. It's gonna be a whole different experience.
Yeah, it's gonna be a ride, definitely. And like we said, I think for the draft tomorrow, we're gonna have this Skype call with us two, and a lot of the other guys kind of jumping in. We're gonna do a live reaction to essentially, I would say, almost all the first round, kind of see how it goes. Yeah.
Exactly. Like we always would get together for a big event or a draft. Unfortunately, now we can't, but make the most of it. And all talk.
And I would say personal note, we've had some good draft memories. For example, when the Bills drafted Josh Allen, I was pissed off. I threw something and almost broke something in our friend's basement because I was so angry. Thank God I was wrong because now I love Josh Allen. But but I remember freaking out. Like we have had our fair share of people just melting down when their team takes a player they don't like. I remember it was the same draft when Baker went number 1. We couldn't stop laughing because we were like, that was the dumbest thing we've seen Cleveland do. Like because before the draft we were like, there's no way, and they did it, and we were like, oh my god, like it's happening. So yeah, it should be fun, and hopefully in that top 5 somebody screws up big and we could get one of those reactions again, man.
Exactly, yeah, and exactly. Can't wait. We're just about 24 hours out, and it's been building up for a couple months now that we've been wanting to talk about the draft, and it's finally here. It's like Christmas Day all over again.
It's time, definitely. But yeah, I think that's it for us. We're gonna sign out, and we'll be seeing everyone again tomorrow.
Talk soon.
Yeah, see you, buddy.